So we are having a conversation about the use of electronics in our households. Um, I believe that not only from our kids, but from us too. I mean, I think that there is something there for us too, not only for our kids. I mean, if it is really so dangerous, it was dangerous for all of us. Um, so yeah, I want to share like what I feel around it. Um, for me, I think that is something that is not completely clear. I mean, there are other things in my life that I'm like super clear about them. Like, oh yeah, I mean, this is super aligned with them. This is not aligned with them. This one is like sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So I feel like what Guillermo was saying, like a daily base of okay, what is the electronic giving you today? But in that sense that I was saying at the beginning, it's probably one of the things that I invest the most energy in my that and conflict resolution in my house in general. So yeah, like accompanying that relationship with electronics, it's probably where I don't know 50% of my motherhood energy goes in general. If I have to describe or if I have to put a label to the emotion, it changes, but sometimes scared, also fear, confused, and sometimes even joy. When I see them like really enjoying it, I'm like, oh my god, it is such a space for joy depending on how they use it. So, yeah, that's my.
I was curious to hear a little bit. I probably missed, Ramon, your sharing, but I was curious just to kind of hear. I think the questions I have are, what is the kind of educational format of your family? Like, are you guys? Is your child in traditional school? Are they homeschooling, unschooling? Like, what's the background for education in your home? If you don't mind my asking.
Yeah, no, of course. So I have an 11-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son, and they are both in traditional school here in the US. I'm a physician, like Christina said, and my wife is also a physician, so we both have full-time jobs. We cannot homeschool them. I don't know if we have the mindset for homeschool them. I mean, we do want to be there for them and to educate them as to the best of possibilities, but I don't know if homeschool them will be the best fit for the family. Why did you ask?
Well, this is an interesting topic for me, right? Because so I was born in 89 and I had a baby, my husband and I, became pregnant unexpectedly before we were married. And so I had a baby at 22. And what I realized is that there's something interesting about having children when you're still, very young, like in this time and place, I think, and we too kind of saw our paths going a little bit differently than they went, right? We thought I was on my way to grad school, when I discovered that I was pregnant. So I thought I had many more years of education and degrees and doing lots more with life before becoming a parent, but that wasn't our trajectory. And so it's interesting because I grew up as a kid who was super into gaming and like electronics, and my parents, like at the time, I mean, I realize now in hindsight that my parents were super revolutionary in their perspectives for the time. I could never totally understand why all of my friends wanted to hang out at my house all the time. Like, my parents were the parents that all the kids wanted to be around, right? And they never limited me from anything. Like, there was no restrictions in our house. Like, they never, I think about all the things that I came to be afraid of as a parent, that my parents never, my parents were never like, no, that's too much sugar, or no, you can't have that, or you're spending too much time on electronics, right? Like, so it's interesting because now, as a parent who has done a tremendous amount of deprogramming and work to kind of get to where my parents were naturally, I am a bit of a product of that style of parenting, right? Like, in a way, my parents exercised a great deal of connection, just like our relationships. I'm also an only child. I mean, my parents are my best friends. We were very, very close coming up. Like, I never felt that fear to talk to my parents about things, to share things with them. And it's not that they weren't honest with me about concerns. It's just that restriction was never a tool that was employed in the house. So, it could be a circumstance where my mom was like, I would come to her and say, I want to try this. Like, I'm curious about this. I want to do this thing. And my mom would say to me, frankly, like, I'm afraid, like, let's talk about it. I have to be honest with you. I'm a little bit afraid, and here's why, and here's what I've heard about it. And kind of, can we go on this journey of learning more about it together before we take the leap? Here are my concerns. And I was always very responsive to that. I never, compared to my peers, I was never a kid that really pushed the limits. Like, I didn't go to college and, have my first drink for the first time. Like, I had my first drink, and, we're recording this now, but, I had my first drink when I was at home with my mom. Like, my mom, me and a friend when we were teenagers, and her mom consented, and the moms were scared, but they were there. And, we picked up some wine coolers and they were at the house. And, like, I had that experience, the first experience of totally bypassing my limits when it came to alcohol happened in my house with my mom and my mom's friend, my friend's mom. And, it was terrible. We were throwing up. I don't think I ever drank like that again, ever. Like, in my life, I never went to that extreme. But just, to kind of, see it in this way that, like, I didn't go to college and, start trying everything and start, exploring. I was, like, fully able to kind of explore within the realms of reason. And, like, there were times where my mom's like, I could get arrested, like, my mom's like, it's not that I want to be a limitation, but here's the reality. Like, if I support this, if I participate this and somebody finds out, I could be arrested. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about that, right? We were having these real conversations about real life, real world consequences and limits that were not arbitrary, right? That were not like, if you watch electronics for 2 hours, you're going to become addicted, right? Like, some sort of, like, very intangible, immeasurable limit, or danger, right? There was no putting, like, arbitrary like, threats or danger in front of me. My mom was like, here's my concern. My dad too, my dad was, of course, much more afraid than my mom. But, so now, having said that, I started out my parenting journey very, very strict in a lot of ways. I was like, especially I think being so young, I was like, I need to prove myself that I am a responsible parent, that I'm doing all the right things. And I had all these rigidities. And it was my own parents who were like, hey, like, where's this coming from? Why are you exercising such control? Like, is this really, like, how you want your relationship with your kid to be? So I had that guidance from my own parents, which is super bizarre. I realize now, having, so sorry, not to be long-winded, but just giving you the, the context for an experience, a childhood experience where other things were enacted, other strategies and ways of being in relationship were very, I mean, my parents were very involved in me, very, very communicative, very, right. There was so much strength in our kind of family relational template. There were a lot of things that my parents did, and none of that had to do with restricting things like foods or sugar or technology, right? So I have been experimenting with that way of parenting for the last 11 years. You know, now with my parents' help and with people like Christina, who came into my life with a, you know, kind of a similar understanding of things. And the results speak for themselves. Like now with my 11-year-old, you know, he's kind of, I feel too, it's like you have to get over that hump of, you know, when they're little and you're afraid and you know, you don't have the outcomes to look at, right? And then you get to the age where they're 11 and they've kind of been exposed to this kind of relationship for such a long time that you can actually see what's happening in their relationships with things, with food, with technology, with, you know, whatever it is. So the reason I asked you to circle back to your original question, Ramon, was because I think that the way that the relationships are from the very beginning have so much to do with how children come to develop their relationships with things ultimately, right? And that's both like terrifying and liberating, because the power lies within the hands of the parent to kind of reconstruct their understanding of how to be in relationship with the child in a way that kind of safeguards against these things that we're afraid of.
Yeah, and
thank you for that.
I think that what I hear from what you said, Christina, is that the relationship is the priority. Like the kind of relationship that you establish with your kids, it's gonna mean a lot in the future or in the moment where we are right now. And I believe that all of us that we are here, even when we are in different settings of schooling, and probably Ramon, you are like the one that has like a most, because we all unschool in some way. I mean, Guillermo's kids go to an ALC. That is like the same concept that I'm doing here, Ramon, and they have the Kanban, etc. But at the same time, what I love about you and Fabi is that you're all the time like looking ways of connecting more with your kids and prioritizing that relationship. And that's huge. I mean, there are parents that they label themselves as unschoolers and they're still restricting and putting all their fears into their kids. So for me, the relationship and prioritizing the relationship it's huge. I don't know if we want to talk specifically about the video of Dr. Shefali, because I found like many interesting things in there that for me, if I can divide them, it's about addiction, toxicity, and relationship. For me, it goes, I mean, we can talk about these three things that electronics bring one of them, but it could be anything. I mean, anything can go into those. I mean, as Guillermo was saying before, like, yeah, I mean, toxicities and everything. So I don't know if you feel connected to talk about those three things, or you want to add something else, or if you felt something specific with the video, that could be a good way to start the conversation around that.
We can start with those three things. Yeah, I kind of got the same kind of 3 points from that short video. In fact, I identified very well because at some point I was giving that message to one of my kids about being addicted to the electronics. And you, Christina, suggested maybe removing that fear that we have as something that, and we actually stopped.
Oh yeah, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Not treating
Yeah,
it
because
as another, even though I still think, but
you feel it, but you don't say it.
I feel it, but I don't say it to them.
Yeah, because I think that it disconnects. I mean, it would disconnect them from you if they're like, wait, I mean, I really like this, and my dad is telling me that I am addicted, which is a huge word. So yeah, I'm glad that you were able to.
I mean, it's somehow true. You know, people that are addicted to different things, they enjoy doing those things. Call it electronics, call it alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, whatever, gaming, gambling. So they enjoy. So I think we spoke about the definition of addiction, right? You do something that you enjoy, despite the potential bad consequences, you still do it.
Yeah, and you can't stop it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cristina, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to say something. If
yeah, please do. No, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, yes, at some point.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful the way your parents like raised you. In a way, like my parents also did something similar. And I see these as like a muscle, you know, like muscles. You just train them by using them, and sometimes we expect kids just to turn in a certain age and all of a sudden have these discernment muscle, you know, or this I know what is right and what is wrong muscle, but they haven't employed that in their lives because parents have been like telling them what is right for them or not, how to do things, kind of like semi in school, in a traditional school where they teach you what is interesting to you or you should be studying, and they don't give you much freedom as to what you want to learn from the world. So the muscle, to me, I just remember going to college and thinking like, what do I even like to study? Like, I don't know. I mean, they told me like to take these subjects because that's what is important, right, for me to learn. So children are people, you know, I like this phrase, children are people, and we just need to treat them that way, where, of course, inside of a safety safety area, but you have to give them freedom to try things, to help them develop that muscle. And little by little, take on more difficult questions, you know, and it could be alcohol or it could be anything, but telling them like, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. And now expect them to be responsible and have that awareness of how things work. I just think that's not a good expectation, not a realistic expectation. So we have to give them little by little, introduce them into being aware of their own decisions and the consequences that come with that. And I think that's good for you, Cristina, and your parents. And I also try to do that with my own kids. And sometimes you see that they are doing the wrong thing in the short term, but at least they're getting the feedback for themselves. They have these natural consequences that otherwise they wouldn't get. So they are starting to get data from the environment and to learn. And electronics is just one way, right? But there are other things. But the same philosophy applies, I think. So that's it.
Just thank you, Guillermo. Just so you know, I come from a completely the opposite type of setting that Cristina just described. So imagine you're the white and completely the black. So for me, it's really hard to try to switch my mindset to a different. I mean, I do it because.
So that means you went to college at 21 and binge drinking. That's what it means, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, well, I'm from Venezuela, so but you know, it's funny because in Venezuela we are exposed to alcohol. I was thinking about that in our house. You know, we don't wait until 21 to drink. You know, it's usually your first experience in Venezuela with alcohol is with your family. Which my wife is a pediatrician, for example, and there is research in the U.S. that the chances of an adult becoming having a difficult relationship with alcohol in the future is predicted by how early you were exposed to alcohol, even within your family. So it's tricky. I mean, there's got to be different, obviously, factors involved. But no, what I mean is, you know, it was always constraint, restriction. Yes and no. This is bad. This is good. That's how we were raised, and my wife too. So I always wonder. So how do you learn? How do you learn on your own how to put limits to yourself? It's very hard for me to grasp that concept.
And I think that it's so interesting what Guillermo was saying. I mean, like be aware of where you are coming from. That is what you're saying too, Ramon, because that's like to have compassion about it instead of, oh no, I mean, I was raised this way or the other way, or my kids are going to regular school. So being aware of where they are will give us information and yeah, like consciousness about how to, if we want to get here, if we want them to be self-aware, and if we want them to decide by themselves and not trusting the first person that come to their life when they're 18 and you're not there anymore, then how are the strategies here? I mean, it's different if it is a kid that has always been in an environment where they've been asked to choose, or in an environment where they were told what to do, like in a regular school. But being conscious of both, of where we are and where we want to be, it's gonna give you like different strategies. And we talked about this, Ramon, once, that it was like, I mean, I understand how hard it is for you guys, or for me. I mean, my mom was super strict too. When you don't have anything to relate to, because in your case, Cristina, it was your parents who told you like, hey, I mean, where are you going with treating Jake like this? In my case, it was the opposite, and probably in your case too, Ramon, that it was like, what? She's gonna sleep with you after 3 months old? And like, yeah, I mean, and my mom was, oh no, I mean, you're not gonna be able to take it out of your bed. And like, really? I mean, is she gonna bring the boyfriend here? Ooh, that's still disgusting. So not having any reference, it's super hard. And I think that that's one thing that I was talking to Cristina this morning, that where these people that we trust, that like Dr. Shefali, that you listen to her, like a bunch of things that I really related to her, and then you listen to something like it doesn't feel right, but I trust her, and I can't be the whole time like not trusting anyone because it's not relating to what I feel. And in that sense, I want to tell you, everyone, and if anyone listen to us later, don't trust us. Don't trust us either. I mean, if you listen to something here that it doesn't resonate in your body, I mean, trust that, and not like, don't judge yourself like, oh my God, I'm not seeing it as Cristina or whoever is saying it. But it's your truth, and it's part of what you are here. So don't trust anyone blindly. Not a doctor, not a guru, not anyone. So anyway, what I think that is important is that in trying to find which is the goal. I mean, if the goal is I wanted to be self-aware, I want them to decide by themselves, or what you were saying before, Ramon, like, why when I let them do whatever they want, they don't stop the electronic? That for me goes back to, if they are told the whole day, like from 8 to, I don't know, to 2, what to do the whole time, when they get home and you're like, okay, what do you want to do? They're like, what? I mean, are you asking me? I mean, are you not going to tell me what to do? And that's something that we see when kids are pulled out of school and they start homeschooling or unschooling. Everybody recommends like a bunch of time, which could be 1 year, 2 years of de-schooling, because the programming is so heavy, but so heavy and we end up ourselves in college, like, why am I in college? Or when you're 40, like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? I don't like this. In the best case scenario, happens when you're 40, sometimes never. So yeah, I think it's important to know where you are, where you want to be, and again, prioritize the relationship, because I think that that's huge. I mean, that's everything.
So let me ask one thing. I'm curious about all of you, Cristina, Guillermo, and Cristina. In regards to electronics, do you provide time limits to your kids? Do you have passwords in some of the electronics or all of the electronics? Are there time restrictions on when to, if there is no time limit, are there times during the day where they are allowed or not allowed? What type of electronics you consider? This is the iPad, is the iPhone, is the computer that they use for school, for example, or that they use to learn. Is it TV? Is the what else? I mean, is a book reader? I know there's so many questions there, but I coming from a very restricted way of upbringing, how do you guys limit, if any, in regards to electronics? I don't know who wants to start.
Okay, I can start, or you can, Cristina, if you want.
Dale, Guille.
My kids hardly ever watch TV. It's like that's kind of like an ancient type of device for them. Only maybe when we watch something together. All right, let's watch a movie, and then we just go and watch a movie together. But other than that, they just have iPads, and that's what I consider the electronics. They don't have a Kindle or an e-reader. They just have an iPad, and they just play games and connect with their friends, especially Liam, a little older. And we do not give them a restriction. We don't give them like a set amount of minutes or hours to be on them. They follow their own rhythm at this point, where they just use them whenever they want. We do say this is time to go to bed, and that's it. And they're not going to be there doing the electronics until whatever time of the day. That's not something that we allow. But during the day, they can do whatever they want. Hopefully, we always try to do enough activities for them. During the week, it's a school where they don't have that option. And then when we're at home, we just try to do things with them as well. So that we pull them away, but it's like indirectly, we don't say, now stop. We say, okay, let's do this. Let's help me out with that. Or just go outside and play with me or whatever. But we don't say, okay, stop, enough. What I do though is I bring them to their attention. Like, hey, don't you want a break from it? I keep playing that little angel or a devil, whatever it is, a little bit, but I don't give them. Wouldn't give them put restrictions on their devices. Kind of like let them to their own.
So, question there, Guillermo. When it's time for bed, which you said, some type somehow that's a restriction. When it's time for bed, where do the iPads go? Are they blocked? Do they have to keep it out of the room or not? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, we just literally just put them away on the night table or whatever. And I know they are not like sneaking in, trying to watch more. Just they turn them on and that's it. If it's 9 or 9:30 or something like that. But we don't say, okay, in an hour you're going to bed, so turn it off. We don't do that. I mean, if they want to 10 minutes before bed, and that's probably not good for their sleep, but they fall asleep anyway, at least for now. So that's it. I don't put them in a drawer or put a lock or anything. Just turn them off. It happens naturally. They listen, I don't know if that answers your question, man.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool.
I want your kid.
And I think it's interesting, Guille, that they are allowed. I mean, in theory, as I understand, they can bring the electronics to the site, but you guys are choosing not to, right? I mean, they allow.
Yeah, I mean, the little kids, they don't even know. They could, I guess, but they don't.
Mm-hmm.
The older kids, they do, but they are doing other things, during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them choose to use them intentionally for a class or an offering or something, but yeah, they just busy doing other things, playing outside with the other friends or doing an offering. They do check their devices maybe during lunch and things like that, but they are not there watching them, So that's why I feel like that worriness in me is a little bit like under control, you know, because I see them moving and playing, being in nature, putting their eyesight into real colors, you know, for a lot of hours during the day. And then I don't feel so bad, because when I came home, I just remember I came home from school and I would just sit in front of TV, you know, for a couple of hours or something to watch cartoons. So it's kind of similar, you know, but yeah, we do not give them restrictions, Ramon. Hopefully they will learn more and more to self control and be aware of, you know, what it feels good for them. And I have to say too, is that there are many cool, interesting things on those iPads, you know. It's not just all like pure like nonsense. So in fact, I've used the iPad many times with Liam, you know, my older son. Like, we're talking about, I don't know, whatever, the Romans, and I just go, okay, let's just look up something. What about the Romans? Let's just look at what was the Roman Empire, and what is a building that is still like standing, you know, from the Roman times, and things like that. We use it like with that approach as well, educational approach, and learning things from the world. And it's amazing. You can go to Google Earth and just look at this thing. It's like, whoa. So it's not just like cartoons and which also are fun, you know, and they watch those, but it's a little bit of both, I guess. Anyway, that's how they are. My kids are pretty good, so I'm just blessed, I guess, and you know, I don't worry too much.
Yeah, I think that for me, more than the electronic itself, it's about what they are doing in the electronic. For example, if they're playing gaming, most of the time they're gaming with their friends. So they are calling, or even the three of them, like my kids, the three of them, they play together, and I find that like the joy that I was describing before, when I see them doing that, I'm like, okay, this is totally good. When they use YouTube Shorts or TikTok or things like that, we have came to a point where they ask me to, because we have Family Link in Android, where they ask me like, can you put a limit to, I don't know, to TikTok to 10 minutes? Because that was a conversation with Tomas the other day. He was like, I noticed that I can't stop like scrolling. So can you put a limit? And I was like, okay, yeah, I put a limit. So for me, it's more what they are using the electronic for, where I pay more attention, more than the hours that they are using them. Something that I am super strict with is when they have been in a fight and they go to the electronic after that. I try to avoid that, like not use the electronic to avoid the emotion or to adormecer, like sleep the emotion.
To relieve somehow whatever happened. To use it as a coping tool.
Yes, I mean, because they are not searching like how to deal with anger. I mean, they are like YouTube, like, so yeah, I pay attention to that. When we go to sleep, I mean, most of the time they stop. I mean, if they are using them, they stop before having dinner, and after that they don't use them again. But again, I mean, they have the electronics in their room. I mean, it's not restricted from me. For example, in the ALC, it happened like at the beginning, they were able to bring the electronics every day. And we have like this reflection meeting at the end of the day. And after 2 weeks, they were like, no, I mean, when we bring the electronics, the energy is lower. I mean, we are not doing as many things together. So let's do it only once a week. And they all voted that that's what they wanted to do. They proposed this week that one of the kids, it's only coming 2 days a week and not the day of electronics. So they were saying like, should we move it so we can play with Derek the day that he comes? So they were discussing that. But again, I mean, it comes from them. And for me, that is important. I mean, for me, it is important that it's not an external thing, telling them what to do or not to do, but accompany them in the process of deciding or feeling or being aware of where they are or what is that bringing to them. Or to me, and that's the conversation that I had before, like, I can't deal with this in this sense, so can we find a common ground here where we don't spend as many time in the electronics and we do something else? What I have seen is
so
that,
isn't that, sorry, a parenthesis there, isn't that external?
yes, but not as an imposition, not because I know better than you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that, oh, I'm the parent and I know that electronics are bad for you, so don't use them. It's like, I can see that you are enjoying it. There is risk of addiction. So how can we, I mean, yeah, we have had that conversation. Like, there are many things that could be addicted, or everything, from my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most common is codependency in relationships. And that one is easy to get into. So for me, it's more about if physically something that be addictive, then that means that they need more accompaniment from me. So if there is sugar in my house and I see them like going there constantly, for example, so that means that we need more conversations. And probably some restriction, but again, the conversation comes from, I have this information and try to transmit it to them. If they don't see it or they don't feel it, then I check within myself, like, okay, what is this bringing to me? Can I do some work to stop the trigger? If I can't, or if it is taking me too long to heal that trigger, then I ask for help from them. Like, I am not dealing with this in a good way. Can we not have Oreos in the house to see what happens with the breakfast? I'm putting an example.
So you do say what you feel as a tool for them to help you feel,
yes,
I guess, better with the situation or the scenario.
Yes, if I haven't been able to deal with it by myself. I mean, it's not like my first go-to. It's like, okay, this is bringing me these emotions. Let me see if there is something there for me that I can deal with without asking them for anything. Again, if it is taking me too long, or if I am not able to get rid of it, I ask for help. I mean, that I have a relationship with them that I don't think I have with anyone else. Like having that conversation of my needs, your needs, where we find a balance. It's not something that I can do in general, because most of the people, well, probably with Christina too, because most of the people are like, when you share your need, they're like, oh, they shut down. And that was something that we were talking last week, like how difficult it is with other adults, especially with kids, when they bring a need, like, I don't want to go eat there. Most of the adults that I know, they're like, okay, so we stay home. I'm like, no, I mean, they're just expressing what they want. I mean, we want to listen to you too, and what you want, and we find a balance. So anyway, so yeah, we had that conversation after trying some things to see what is bringing up for me first.
Let me ask you one more thing, Christina. You brought this example of Tomas finding himself using TikTok too long, and he asked you, can you put a restriction? Because it seems I can't do it on my own. So can you do it for me? Have you noticed an instance where they were doing something too much and they did not realize it after a while? So you bring what you just said, like you bring how you feel about it, or you do something before that?
before bringing how I feel about it, I asked them how they
let's
feel.
pretend Tomas did not notice how long he was doing TikTok, but you notice it.
Mhm.
And then, I don't know, a few days, few weeks pass, and you still see that he's just spending too much time in TikTok. So do you bring how you feel about it to talk that situation, or you do something before?
I believe that it would depend. Okay, let me see. The first thing that I bring is how questions about how they feel. Like if he spends 2 hours in TikTok and I know it, I will ask him like, oh, I don't know, he stops because we're going to eat. And I ask them, or I ask Tomas, hey, how was it? I mean, what did you do this afternoon? Oh, I was in TikTok for 2 hours. And I found this video and this other video and this car, blah, 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 blah. So he started like explaining all the videos. And then I ask him how he feels. Sometimes there is like a direct answer or not. So that would be like one thing, like bringing awareness to how that makes him feel. The second thing is that is the part of addiction that I find very interesting is what is that? I mean, if that is not, or if I am observing that that is not giving him joy, or he is stopping after 2 hours and he feels like drained or mad, or he's really no patient or whatever, then I try to see what is that bringing to him, which I feel that it's very interesting when we see something as an addiction, not to pay attention to the thing that I was talking to Cristina this morning, because it's Gabor Mate's approach. That is not the thing, is what the thing is bringing to you, because there is a lack of that. That if you feel this could be anything. I mean, it could be electronics, it could be alcohol, it could be shopping, it could be playing soccer. I mean, something that I told Tomas once is like, if I see you playing soccer with, I don't know if the football, like 8 hours a day. And if I tell you like, Tomas, let's go, I don't know, eat. And you're like, no, I can't. I mean, I have to see my friends and I need to play with them. And or I tell you like, okay, let's go today to the beach. No. We said that we were going to play at 9 and I can't leave the house. That would be an issue. I mean, I don't care if it is outside and the sun is perfect for you and physical activity. I mean, anything can be addictive. So I would pay attention to that. What is that bringing to them? If it is TikTok, if it is Fortnite, if it is YouTube, or if it is football, what is that bringing to you? And maybe there is, I don't know, boredom is not connection with me. It's not, for example, in Tomas's case, is not connection with masculine energy. So he finds that in a video in TikTok that they are talking about cars. So I pay attention to that. If I have done all that and still I can't find a solution, I will talk to them about how I feel about it. Does that answer your question, Ramon? I like different stages.
Yes, definitely it answered the question. I took notes even.
Okay. Cristina, do you want to share? How is it for you?
This is a great conversation, first of all, very rich and full of goodness. Yeah, you know, I think there are a couple things that are coming up for me. One of the things is that I realize that I have never experienced the kids like connecting with their electronics in a way that is unhealthy. So I don't really have that backdrop of it. Like there's never really been, they obviously, they have never had restrictions, but I always think about this because people ask me all the time, like, aren't you worried about this? Like, you know, whatever it is, electronics or, you know, them, I don't know, just learning about something that like getting a bad idea, you know, investing and double downing in that idea. I have no idea, but I've never experienced them connecting with these things in a way that are destructive. And I can really sense that, I feel like I can feel that internally, that that's not happening. And so I've been trying to explore why that is. And I think that, it has something to do in our case with the style of relationships and kind of the nature of how we interact with each other, right? So I don't think that we have a conventional, like my kids don't see my husband and they see us as their people that can like support them in getting their needs met, of course, but they're not like, they don't see us necessarily as being like the parents, like in this way, they're not like, oh, my parents are coming, shh, right? Like they don't have that relationship to me. And I think that, it could have something to do with how we are, Shane and I are, as people, like we tend to be very into a lot of the things that they're into, right? Like, just like I mentioned, like, I was a gamer, like I'm really good at gaming. So like, it has never really occurred to me to think that like, and I know all the things I gained from the years that I spent playing video games, and like all the learning I did and all of the interaction, even at the time of not having like the social means. Like I used to get on my phone with friends and do like 3-way calling, and we would all be playing the same games at the same time. So there was a way back then even to kind of have this like social aspect to gaming. And so, I don't ever really feel, I think the fear that I've ever had about electronics or gaming or like addiction related to gaming or being online, it was really because other people were kind of saying like, oh, this is a thing to be afraid of. And I was like, oh shit, like, is this something I should be afraid of? And so there was like a time period there where I started thinking about, well, maybe I should be thinking about this as a parent, because even though we have this kind of different nature to our relationships, I still am their parent. I don't want to like get in trouble for like, or let them down, right? But it's maybe it's silly and naive, but like that's the reality. Like there is nothing in their lives more interesting to them right now than spending time with us, which baffles me. Like it totally baffles me. Like they would stop doing anything at any moment if they could do something with us, right? Like go play a game or whatever it is. And they seek us out, for that. They're like, hey, like, can we play now? Can we do, like, we game together? we do all these things. And so like, I never think about it. I never think about like, oh, are they watching too much, or, are they doing this? Like, not anymore. You know what I mean? Not because I realize like, okay, I'm not going to be scared about it because everybody else is scared about it. So I think what I'm saying is that, there are these kinds of relationships with adults. Like I think Dr. Shefali is a really good example. Dr. Shefali is an extremely charismatic, interesting, funny, vibrant person. And I think she probably undermines I don't know what her relationship is like with her children. I think she has a daughter, like an older, like teenage daughter, but I think she undermines the impact that really interesting, desirable, attractive adults can have in the lives of kids. Adults that are still responsible, aware, connected people who have a sense of like, how to kind of maintain the safety of the situation or to collaborate with people to keep people safe. You know what I mean? So like with my kids, they're like, oh, is this okay? Can I do this? I'm like, is it cool? Like I look around, I ask for, so there's a degree of like, I am totally in it with them. I don't necessarily see myself as being the one who knows, really in any instance. And I'm always sharing with them in a way of like, I think this might be what happens if we do this, you know, like, I'm not sure, but like my previous experiences, what I've read has kind of indicated to me, like, this might be a possibility. What do you think? Right. And kind of putting it back in on there. So they don't externalize their power to me, but they really like me and they really want to like hear what I have to say. And I have found that like that must be what protects them, you know, in a way. Like there's something about the way that we relate to each other that they're always like, Mom, like, what do you think? You know, like, or Mom, you know, what about this? Or, you know, Mom, I heard someone online say that, you know, TikTok is an addictive, like they've talked to me about it. I mean, they've come to me and said to me, you know, oh, people say that, you know, you can get addicted to screens or this or that. And I'm like, oh, really? You know, like, what do you think about that? And so, it's hard to say. Like, I don't ever really focus on, I don't know what we do with technology. There's never any real discussions about the devices themselves that are related to like, you know, I don't know. I don't know if this is making sense. Maybe Christina, you can like shed some light on it, but I realize that it must be rare, right? Because people come to our house, just like friends came to my parents' house and to my house, and they're like, dude, your parents are so cool. Like they always want to hang out. They always want to be around. And no one ever really pushes the limits, you know. I'm like, oh, hey, you know, this is what I have and this is where my capacity is. And I just share that with them in a real way. And I never really have any issues with them pushing up against my limits or their limits in ways that frighten me.
I mean, I think that we go back to the relationship, and I would pay like a lot of attention to what anything in our relationship with our kids, it's bringing resistance or disconnection. If there is something, whatever it is, that is bringing disconnection, and disconnection comes from, that's how I see it, from not feeling seen or respected from our kids, then I would pay attention to that. And I mean, you have, Christina, like a huge amount of work, personal work, and the relationship with your kids. It's as clean as it could be, because I deeply believe that we all come here to work on something. So there are things that, I mean, probably, I don't know, your kids in the future, they're gonna have like a specific story told to themselves, like, oh, my mom did never put a limit on me on the electronics, so now I have whatever trauma I invented in my head.
Probably.
So, I mean, we never know, and it's okay. But yeah, I mean, like in a specific moment, I would pay attention to, because I feel that it's really disrespectful to tell someone, anyone. I mean, if I tell, I don't know, if Ramon plays tennis and I told him like, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. I mean, tennis, I mean, you don't move the whole body. Oh, let's say baseball. You don't move the whole body. You don't do anything. You are not breathing correctly. I mean, that's the most boring sport ever. I mean, how would you? I mean, I would be like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I mean, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. So I would pay like really close attention to those conversations. I mean, it's not the thing. It's how you are getting there. So yeah.
I wanted to add one more piece about just the mechanisms of addiction. You know, like that's another key kind of element of this. And, you know, for whatever the reasons are, you know, my husband and I's journeys early on in our careers led us to, we owned and operated substance abuse treatment facilities. And we worked directly with drug and alcohol addicted people. you know, for several years. And, you know, I think that I got such a sense of how multifaceted addiction is, right? Like how many variables have to be clicked on in order for a situation to manifest as full-blown chemical addiction to this substance or that substance, that, you know, it was so clear to me that the alcohol or the drug or the thing was the least, like, it was a almost, you could almost say an innocent bystander of, you know, this other concoction of things that, you know, it became almost like an unknowing accomplice to the fulfillment of this situation for this person. And so I tend to find that the focusing on the thing versus focusing on these other very important aspects of like what creates deficit, spiritual deficit in a human being, in a growing human being. It's so disastrous for parents because all of the energy is directed, all the focus is directed on the thing and a fear of a thing, while all of these opportunities to be able to really capitalize on the true like tools that we have and the true power that we have as partners to them, you know, it's misplaced. It's put into focusing on the thing and thinking about the thing being the danger, when in actuality there are threats that are far greater, like, you know, like not being an interesting, desirable, attractive person to a child, right? Like that's a threat, right? So when a child does not have an adult or a couple of adults in their lives that they see as being, you know, interesting, worth listening to, worth considering their perspectives, that is a threat. That's a real threat, right? Because then the source of connection becomes whatever the other thing is, right? Like they become oriented to, you know, these other, that we have to attach, right? Like as human beings, we have this innate need to belong, to attach, to feel that sense of connection. And if it's not being fulfilled in relationships with healthy, robust, quality leaders who are cool and interesting and trustworthy, it's going to be somewhere else. The attachment's going to happen somewhere else. So for me, the focus on the item itself, the sugar, the technology, the this, the that, it's doing parents such a disservice, right? Like it's just totally like blinding parents to the other realities of like where they could be truly powerful and influential. So, you know, that always makes me super sad. So when I see a video like this by Dr. Shefali, you know, who I find to be incredibly articulate, she's got a lot of good ideas. I recommended The Conscious Parent as a reading companion for many parents, talking like using these, you know, just broad brushstrokes of chemical addiction and, you know, take away the iPads and introduce them as late as possible. Like focusing on the thing. I'm like, are you, whoa, I thought you were so much more creative and expansive and aware than this, right? To be like, just doubling down on this fear narrative and, you know, not really helping parents understand where their power lies. Like, I just feel like she, you know, as someone who's become a public figure in the conscious parenting field, like that's a little bit of a no-no, you know what I mean? So that was very surprising to me. I think that, you know, to broadly just throw chemical addiction around is totally to reduce it down in its mechanisms, which are so complex. And that's a whole nother discussion, you know, that we could talk about at some point. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad for parents who were already afraid, who were already putting their energy into worrying about screens, when really they could have been devoting that energy to really kind of building the relational container with their child.
Wow, Christina, thank you. I do have
Christina,
I do have two comments. One, maybe when we growing up, the electronic type was something completely different to what kids electronics are today, meaning how much, the access to whatever, whenever they have in one single device could bring to them. So I think it's a little, coming from my restrictive upbringing, I think it's more difficult to manage a device now than what it was to manage a device, I don't know, 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So I do relate with Dr. Shefali about, maybe when to introduce such a powerful device to an immature brain. That's one thing, and the other Christina. When you asked at the beginning what emotions do I feel now after the conversation, I feel fear because I'm not certain. I understand why at least one of my kids is enjoying the electronics so much to watch innocent things. I don't think she's doing anything bad. But I'm fearful that I'm not discovering what's missing, what's causing her to rely on that action or device or TV watching. So I have a lot of work to do.
Christina, you allowed me to say something, and then I need to go probably after that contribution, if you guys don't mind. Thank you, Christina. You said like many interesting things, and Ramon, you as well. Just some, I guess, closing thoughts today. And what you were talking about is trying to be like role models, Christina, in a way, just always being available to them, approachable, maybe even playful, and playful with the device, just, hey, let's just play this game here together, and that way you just don't just put this label on this instrument that is negative all the time about any purpose, and because I don't think that's reality, right? Speaking of books, probably my favorite book on parenting is Unconditional Parenting by Alfie Kohn, and that's, to me, is just invaluable. It's just coming from this non-judgmental place. It's amazing. So I highly recommend the book, Unconditional Parenting. And the other piece to this puzzle is that we need to talk more about the content of what they are doing and they're watching, because they're not just simply consuming culture, they are creating things many times. Minecraft is a good example, that became so popular, this video game called Minecraft, where they can create things, entire worlds. So to me, because I've always liked the health perspective of things, as long as they are taking enough breaks, moving, and that doesn't become like an issue actually for their own health, there is so much potential in this thing too, just like TV has so much potential. Any technology is a neutral technology. It's just what we make of it. Just speaking from that perspective alone, obviously the health thing is real too, but just speaking from the technology, how you use it is neutral. Then you just go about doing things in a positive or negative. Are you on TikTok all the time, just consuming? And I'm aware of they are doing. I know they are watching TikTok or not. Or if they are watching a video on how to take care of a horse, like Stella is big into horses right now. She's just all the time like watching about horses and like, how to take care of horses. I mean, which it's wonderful. But Minecraft, like, for example, they are creating things and they are connecting with each other online. Like you say, Christina, which I'm amazed that you were already doing on the phone. Like you were a pioneer here. And they are like connecting and building things together. So the content, it's very important. And sometimes we can even sit down with them and just create things together. I created this world with them together in Minecraft. They have apps that are funny to play with words. And I don't know, I just wanted to put that positive spin about try to encourage them to use in a positive, constructive way where they are creating things, not just consuming things. Because of course we know that these companies are very clever and they fight for their attention, and they have triggers that they know how psychology works. And by the end of before you know it, you are like 20 minutes into TikTok, you know. But there are so many positive alternatives as well. So chemical addiction can happen with endorphins also. People are some people are addicted to running, and that's not healthy, for example. You know, they will destroy your knees, for example, after a few years. So, and it's true. So you can get addicted to anything really, including these devices. As long as we have some balance with them, physical balance where they are getting to the sun and playing, moving around throughout the day, and we put like a positive spin where they're creating things, we're partners with them, we just guide them, we hold them together, but we don't tell them exactly what to do every time, just offer that advice, and they see us as a role model in a way, because they see that we find the balance ourselves and we're not in front of the TV, you know, watching mindlessly. I think the kids are very smart, and they have in time will learn and how to navigate. And the whole being so restrictive, like Dr. Shefali was saying, that can work for some people, I guess, but it can come with other negatives as well. So maybe the other approach, Gabor Mate, you were talking about, maybe that's a little healthier for the whole person. You know, I just want to see whole person development. That's to me the most important. So anyway, that's my contribution. But yeah, TikTok is for real. That thing will suck you in. So anyway, thank you so much, Christina, for the opportunity to meet Ramon here today. Nice to meet you, Ramon.
Same here, Guillermo.
Christina, so good to see you. So I need to sign off here. I apologize. Take care, guys. Take it far.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Something that you just said right now, and that struck me, it's about being the role model. And I think that there is a huge thing there, because we are not, what I believe is that we want to be role models that they feel like it, because if not, they will find one. So if they don't feel connected to us, I mean, we are not role models because we put the label on us, like, I'm your role model. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna follow you. It's like, I need to build that connection, because I mean, we can break it, I mean, easily. So it's not like, oh, I'm not watching TV, I'm not using the electronics, so why are they using it? Well, maybe because they are not looking up to me. They are looking up to, I don't know, whoever they find on social media, whoever they find in school. So being the role model means to connect with them, and they like us, and they're like, oh yeah, I mean, she's not using it, and I want to be like her. It's not only one part, it's like both. And that goes back to the relationship. And Ramon, you said that now you feel fear. I mean, I understand that what you said is that you feel fear of what you're not seeing in Amalia's relationship with electronic. Yeah.
Now I feel fear that I don't know why she is building that strong relationship with watching TV. Is basically is watching TV on any electronics, TV or the iPad or the phone, and not linking with somebody else like me or mother or grandparents or.
Yeah.
Christina, I wonder if Ramon knows about human design.
You want me to stop recording? Maybe we can talk more about that if you want, Ramon.
Sure.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Stop. Okay.